Mussolini's model of fascism provided the perfect ideological base for a man who would rule Spain until his death in 1975, General Francisco Franco. The Spanish economy had benefited greatly from the purchase of its industrial products by the competing powers during the First World War, undergoing significant industrial expansion. Of course, that growth gave rise to inflation, which led in turn to widespread discontent. And when by mid-1919 the economy had stagnated, rural revolts and industrial strikes became increasingly common. What resulted was, as it had in Germany, a rapid polarization of Spanish politics. On the one side, nationalists, and on the other, Republicans. And their differences often found extreme expression in parties such as the fascist-oriented Falange, led by Franco.
Franco was an unlikely dictator because he lacked charisma. He wasn't particularly charismatic looking. He was a small, rather stout man with a fairly high-pitched voice. But I think perhaps the most important characteristic of Franco that enabled him to make a successful career was his ruthlessness. I mean, in a sense, you could almost describe him as a social psychopath. His ability to have no empathy for his victims whatsoever.
By 1935, Spain's political polarization had descended into abject chaos. Communist support for a weak Republican government was met with Falangist opposition and led to a succession of random assassinations. However, it was the revenge murder of the right-wing opposition leader, José Calvo Sotelo, that gave the signal for the generals of the Spanish army to act. 3 days after Sotelo's death, on the 17th of July, 1936, they led a coup d'etat, seizing Spanish Morocco before invading the Spanish mainland. Europe watched on, and despite a non-intervention pact having been signed by Britain, France, Russia, and Germany, Hitler chose to act.
Hitler was quite concerned of an alliance between the Spanish and the French Republic to prevent his expansion into Europe. So he felt that this would weaken France's position if he helped to destroy the Spanish Republic.
While Hitler may have harbored concerns about an alliance between Spain and France, he had seen his fellow dictator Mussolini flaunt the League of Nations in Ethiopia. And having himself reoccupied the Rhineland without opposition, his dream of a reunified Germany now began to appear a tantalizing reality. To that end, a remilitarized Germany lending technical support to Franco and his nationalists presented him with a chance to give newly developed weapons and tactics a real-world dry run.
The latest planes, the latest machine guns, the latest artillery, and so on and so forth. This was a perfect opportunity. And this is something that Goering was very interested in as well.
Hermann Goering would testify at the Nuremberg trials that he had indeed urged Hitler to support Franco under all circumstances in order to test weaponry. And one of the greatest tests would be of the Luftwaffe, who in April 1937 were given the task of reducing the beautiful Basque city of Guernica to ruins. A raid that would validate the growing international fear of air attack. A fear which accurately anticipated that, in a future war, the aerial forces of warring nations would be able to wipe whole cities and their civilian inhabitants off the map. The Luftwaffe, using new carpet bombing techniques, succeeded admirably.
As far as Hitler was concerned, it was all good. His participation in the Spanish Civil War had been immensely beneficial. They'd managed to trial a number of military tactics which would be used in the Blitzkrieg in Poland first and then in France. A lot of military equipment had been tried and tested in Spain. So for Hitler, the consequences were positive.
And with his armed forces growing in experience, Hitler's training ground had proved a success and would set the scene for a much larger conflict.